I'm gonna be loopy.
I'm so tired.
Good. I'm a tired boy.
Good, I like. I'm a tired boy.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast, the official show of This Is My Bourbon Shop, where we talk about what makes bourbon the spirit of Kentucky. My name is Perry. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us tonight, or today, whenever you're actually listening to it. I don't know what you do. And with me this week are the home-based co-hosts, Conrad and Cheney.
Whoa.
Hey,
Those are our last names.
Doesn't it sound like a campaign team, though?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that earlier, and I was like...
2020. Conrad Cheney.
Conrad Cheney. Yeah.
So we're so happy that you guys are here with us tonight. Again, I don't know if it's tonight for you or not.
Just treat it like a concert, and everything's tonight.
Everything's tonight. It's like when
It's 4:00 in the day.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, are you ready?
Well, it's always like when those concerts, the artists are like, "This is the best town. This is the best crowd I've ever had."
I love Cleveland.
Yeah, I love Cleveland.
No one really does.
No.
Like you're just
It
making that
smells
up.
weird here.
Yeah.
You're just saying it to.
You're big for no
please us.
reason.
People from Cleveland don't like Cleveland.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Their football team doesn't like Cleveland.
Yeah. So we are going to, before we hop into what we're drinking, there are a couple of big news stories that dropped in the past couple of days in the world of bourbon.
Hot bourbon news.
Yeah, hot scoops. The first being the new release in the Jim Beam series, the Distiller's Cut, which we actually have poured in our
What do you
glasses
know?
right now. So before we get into the news, let's say cheers, boys. Salute. Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah. So Jim Beam Distiller's Cut is 100 proof, 5 to 6 year old bourbon, making it at least a year older than regular old Jim Beam, and a whole 20 proofage points higher than basic Jim Beam. It is a limited release. We're not really sure what the distribution is going to be like just yet, but it is already out in Kentucky, or in certain parts of Kentucky. I picked this up on Sunday before I even knew that it was really a thing, and I was like, I think I need to try this. Oh! It's also non-chill filtered, so all of the like fatty acids and everything that come out of the barrel with the bourbon are still in there.
Come with it.
Yeah. So I'll be real
All that
honest.
fatty acid packed in.
Love that fatty acid.
that lovable fatty acid taste. Right here in the bottle.
Do we get some bourbon glitter with that?
Yeah. No, actually, I read a whole little press release, and they said that they were actually made sure to take out the chunks of barrel.
Oh, okay.
Before they.
How
So-
kind of them.
Yes.
Leave the fatty acid.
Yeah.
We'll take the barrel out.
Take
for
the
you.
wood out for me now.
But I mean, all bourbon goes through filtering. Regardless, this is just more of a. I mean, it's non-chill filtered, so all the kind of little leftovers, and you can see more of the actual fatty acids in the bourbon when you add ice or when you chill it, just kind of in general. So you can't really tell just by drinking it neat that it's all in there.
I thought you were going to say by looking at it, you could tell, and I was going to be amazed.
You can't really tell by looking at it too much either. Yeah, exactly. What do you guys think?
Looking for a watermark, Kurt? This is audio medium, but he's holding it up to like it's national treasure, and there's clues in the money.
By the way,
What if there was? I don't know.
we have moved recording venues to the office. We're no longer sitting in the living room, so it's a little bit tighter in here. But you know what? I like it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call it a man cave because I hate that term. But
Hate the term. Plus,
Not really a
Not
cave.
really
It's not a
man
cave at all.
either.
Yeah, it's got a window.
Anyway, so what do you guys think about it?
I'm gonna sip it again.
Okay, go for it. Kurt?
I honestly think it's sort of similar to Jim Beam Black.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very similar to Jim Beam Black.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to sell it as something different. I don't know.
Sure. Well, it's higher proof than
Yeah.
Jim Beam Black is, but I guess now, since they took the age statement off of the black label, it could be that it's aged the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I definitely see it as being similar in profile, but I just like this better than Jim Beam White Label in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it to me is what I always wanted Jim Beam to be, and everything that it was kind of cracked up to be,
Yeah.
but just kind of amped up a little bit. But what do you think, Tanner?
It is interesting because is a very crisp bourbon, which is a weird descriptor to use for a bourbon.
Yeah.
But it's very in and out. It's not a lingering bourbon. It just hits and it's gone. And I actually really admire that. I've had Jim Beam White and Jim Beam Black, but I don't know their flavor profiles so well that I'm like, oh, this is totally Jim Beam Black. I believe you guys. But I personally,
Baby bourbon boy.
yeah, again, I'm the baby bourbon boy. So I personally can't identify that, oh, this is just a souped up Jim Beam Black. But I enjoy it. I think it's a nice casual drinking bourbon. It is not a bourbon that I wince at, if that makes sense. Like it is.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
It's
there's
very
not,
easy to drink.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of heat on it for being
Sure.
a underproof. I mean, I've been kind of raving about it for the past few days, and
I enjoy
telling
it,
people,
yeah.
Yeah, I like
telling people to go grab a bottle if they can find
And
it.
how much
anywhere.
is it?
It runs for about $22.
Okay.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I mean,
it's
people
the right price range.
when it first was announced back in late spring, early summer, people were going, oh well, it's going to be like $40-$50, and it's going to sit on the shelf, kind of like the single barrel or the signature craft or whatever has for the past few years, and nobody's bought it. But I mean, I bought it for $22 on Sunday, and I had like 2 sips, and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and go get another bottle.
Yeah, it's very competitive.
Yeah. It's very good.
I dig that a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, to find a non-chill filtered bourbon at that price point, too, I don't think there's any other brands out there that have one that cheap.
No, not that cheap.
That's also NCF. But yeah, I'm quite a big fan of it. So moral of the story: go find you a bottle if you can.
Yeah, that's really competitive. I was expecting honestly 45,
40,
50.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm actually way more a fan of it now.
Same.
And I liked it before, but
Yeah.
that's a really competitive price.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I was hoping, because it does taste similar to Jim Beam Black, except the higher proof. It has more of that hit, I think.
And
So
I
I
mean-
was expecting, they're gonna, put it at $40 and
Yeah.
try to get it out of you a little bit.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's 22, like, I'd buy that all immediately.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it took me a couple seconds to really figure out whether or not I wanted it. But I kind of looked at it. I was like, this is something new. And I thought, maybe it's it wasn't Distiller's Masterpiece, because the Distiller's Masterpiece bottle is really, really pretty. And I thought maybe it was Devil's Cut repurposed or
Yeah.
whatever. And I read up on it just a little bit. And as soon as I saw 100 proof, 5 to 6 years non-chill filtered, I was like, this needs to go home with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, great bottle of bourbon, especially for $22. The other big piece of news, and Kurt, you're going to be real happy about this.
Okay.
1792 announced today that they're going to be releasing a bottled in bond expression next
No
month.
way.
Yeah,
Interesting.
That's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
I am really.
And when
really
are they
excited.
supposed to?
It's either going to be in the next couple of weeks or at the very beginning of December.
Let's find it.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those at home, 1792 is one of my favorite bourbons.
Yeah,
If
and
not-
I drink it a lot
yeah.
now because you introduced it to me.
Yeah, I mean it's a very good kind
One
of
of my
everyday-
value,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's a
one
good
of my
middle of the road.
perfect value bourbons.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. And we've had the small batch. Have you had the single barrel?
Mm-hmm.
Single barrel is real good. Full proof is fantastic. I've got a bottle of the 225th anniversary up there, which I think you've tried.
I've tried that. Yeah.
I don't know if you've actually had
I
it,
haven't.
Tanner. Maybe we'll get it down for you here in a second. See if you want to, if you want to give it a little shot. But yeah. But this is like that's pretty big news for a label like 1792 that's kind of prided themselves on their small batch release just being their flagship product. And I mean, they've had some other stuff come out recently, like the high rye and the foolproof and the sweet wheat. Sweet wheat.
Yeah, that's fun to say.
That have extended the brand a little bit. But I think Bottled and Bond was the next logical step for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have high hopes for it. I think it'll be pretty decent. But, you know, we'll do a, if we can find it, and I'm sure we'll be able to, we'll save that for a review on the show.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Cool. Guys, I forgot to ask you, how y'all been doing?
Been good, been busy.
Yeah?
Good and busy.
Yep. My two mainstays now at this point.
Good and busy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Need that on a shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Good and busy, busy and good.
Working hard or hardly working.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the life of a designer.
Yeah, exactly.
In a nutshell. So
It's definitely not for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Do it for the passion.
Yep.
So speaking of design, we were a little bit heavy-handed, I guess, last time that we were all together. So I wanted to this week kind of lighten it up a little bit, and talk some about Kentucky's distilleries and what our favorites are. Now, out of the three of us, who's been to the most? Is it you?
No, probably you.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume. Perry.
No, I actually haven't been to, like, I've been on campuses more, but I haven't actually done like the tours.
Then maybe it is
and
me,
everything.
because I've
Yeah.
toured
Yeah, what have you done?
6 or 7.
Yeah. See,
Yeah, you got it.
I've actually only toured like.
Because you almost did. Did you do the whole
3.
bourbon?
We
trail?
haven't done the whole Bourbon Trail yet. We sort of got sidetracked when it got cold, and now it's cold again. But we're eventually gonna do it. We gotta get the shirt. There are only a couple places, and they're all the closest ones. So we did all the sort of outlier ones, and can knock those all on.
So that includes what?
The ones I remember going to, I think it's 6. Bullet, Makers, Jim Beam, Heaven Hill.
Wild Turkey.
Not Wild Turkey yet. Four Roses. No. Yes, Wild Turkey, not Four Roses.
Oh, okay.
And then...
Town Branch.
No.
Oh yeah, because I told you not to go.
Yeah. Woodford? No. Oh, okay, so there are 2 Heaven Hill distilleries. There's like the big one, and then there's like that shop one in Louisville. And that was the other one I've done, so that's 6.
Okay. Cool. And you've done.
I've done Wild Turkey, Woodford, Makers. I believe that Buffalo Trace.
Okay. Cool. As far as like being on campuses, I've been to more than I've actually toured. But I've done, as far as touring goes, Trace, Maker's Mark, and shoot. It was Angel's Envy. I did Angel's Envy.
Interesting.
Yeah, Angel's Envy was a lot of fun. That was a really, really cool trip. So for those of you who don't know, the Bourbon Trail is basically just a fun way to experience all of the distilleries in Kentucky, and at the very end of it, if you filled up your passport,
Yes.
quote unquote,
Yeah.
you get a T-shirt, and you get to brag to all your friends.
Yeah.
About yeah.
It's weird the ones that are and aren't included, though. Like, there are some
How so?
that... Like, I think it's... Either Town Branch or Four Roses isn't on the trail.
It's also...
And Heaven Hill's on there twice.
I think Town Branch isn't on there,
Which is strange.
and Willet's not on there either.
Willet's not on there.
Buffalo
Yeah.
Trace isn't on there either.
Right.
Which you would think... It used to be on there,
That's
but Buffalo
right.
Trace just...
Yeah.
I believe it was this year decided, hey, we don't need to do it. Or we don't want to do it.
It's really bizarre.
I think it's more that it probably costs money to be
I
on
assume
the
it's a
Bourbon Trail.
membership, yes.
It's a
Sure.
membership, so...
And Buffalo Trace has like their basic tour is just free. So I think, like, you know, if they're trying to keep up with the the actual Bourbon Trail, you know, they didn't want to charge people for.
Right.
So I mean that makes sense to me that they
Here's my
decided
thing
to
with
back
Bourbon
out of it.
Trail. I really loved the things I did. I learned a lot. I wish they would kind of talk to each other because
It's all the same
you get
thing.
the same tour
Yeah.
every time.
That is true.
Yeah,
Like so
I
that,
get that.
gets a little repetitive, and that's honestly one of the reasons we stopped is because we heard the same 6 points a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So we took half a year off.
You
or
always
whatever.
get the questions of like, well, what's the minimum age for bourbon?
Percentage of corn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff.
where can you make bourbon? You
Yeah.
know,
As far as the educational standpoint, I agree.
yeah,
But when each one has their own special point or unique
Oh yeah, everybody has their own
art,
flavor.
like they have that special tour guide or
Right.
or something
Makers
like that.
gives you the label. Like,
Yeah.
things like that.
yeah.
And those are
And
cool.
you have
Those
a
are
chance
the
to go and
cool
dip your own bottle
mementos.
at makers,
Right, and that's
too.
why you're there.
Yeah.
Like
But-
I would rather learn more about the history than how bourbon gets made.
Yes.
Basically.
Sure,
Mhm.
sure. But you know, places like Buffalo Trace have tours where you can go deeper into that,
Oh, cool.
and where they become more of seminars than they necessarily do just kind of the casual like, oh, this is where we store these
Yeah.
barrels that become
Yeah.
pappy and
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
all that stuff. And you know, speaking of Pappy on the Buffalo Trace tour, without fail, somebody will go, "Where's the Pappy?" And they're like, "Just why?
Yeah.
Like, are you trying to steal it?"
Yeah. Why would we tell you?
Somebody did that already, and they're in a lot of trouble now.
Right.
And we don't get that Pappy.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I was listening to the Bourbon Daily the other day, and they were talking about whether or not Pappy is good for bourbon. And one of the people that was on there, or that were on there rather, brought up the whole Pappy Gate,
Yeah.
or whatever cutesy term they had for it. And they were saying, well, why don't they sell that? You know, or auction it off or something. Because they'd come out and said, well, we're probably going to destroy the bourbon was in there because we don't know if it's been tampered with or not.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you sell it? I mean, it's not like if you auction it off for $15,000, nobody's going to drink that. You know, it's a cool piece of history to have. I mean, even if they put a little hang tag on it that said evidence.
Right. Or do not drink. Or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. I don't understand why they haven't.
Probably more of a
Well-
PR nightmare than it's worth.
More than likely, sure. But I still think that, you know, from just kind of a... I can't think of the word. It'd be cool for them.
It would
to
be
go
cool,
do
but
it.
I
From
think...
a bourbon enthusiast, you're like,
Yeah,
like,
but
that's
I think the
awesome.
risk there is that they are glorifying the theft of Pappy. Because
Yeah.
it's like, this
Sure.
is worth more money now because it was stolen and we got
Sure.
it back. So then people are like, oh, well,
What happens?
you're endorsing me to steal this. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to go steal some more and give it back to you and you make much more money. Like,
Yeah.
I think it is a slippery slope and I get why they didn't do it.
Sure. Yeah, I get that too, but I think that they are kind of missing out on an opportunity to capitalize on their misfortunes.
Maybe.
You know, but that's a whole nother conversation for
Yeah.
another time. Anyway, yeah, I do agree that I wish that they would kind of break things up a little bit more throughout the. But I think that like Maker's Mark does a pretty good job of talking about their history, and I think that they kind of like all of these distilleries kind of have this notion of, well, one of two things is happening. You either come here because you know enough about our company and you've read up on the history of it and we're just going to tell you about how we make it, or you're going to come here, be really interested in it, and then go back home
Right.
and get on our Wikipedia page and read about our history and everything.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it would be really cool, you know, in 100 years from now, if somebody dressed as Bill Samuels,
Right.
Maker's Mark comes out, and they're like, "Oh, this is a family recipe."
Yeah.
Like they do with like Ben Franklin and
Right. Or Colonel Sanders.
Or
is
Colonel
what I was thinking of. Yeah, I think that Makers and Jim both do a good job. It seems like the places with more history know how to talk about it. It's a place like Bullet that really struggles because they don't have as much history.
yeah, they're such a new company. that
right.
it's
Like
hard
even
to,
though there was a distillery there and they kind of talk about what it was before it was Bullet, they kind of struggle with the oh snap, we don't have a lot of us to talk about. Here are offices that we use sometimes. These are kind of cool. And that's really their only thing. It's like, this is where our chairman sits and like all this kind of stuff. But and they've got their own cooperage, which is nice. But their distillery tour is the most boring because there is no history there. It is just this is how bourbon is made. And it's like, all right.
It's kind of fabricated history too.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, not trying to knock Bullet or anything, because I'm a pretty big fan of their products, but I mean, it does kind of seem like they're relying more on the ideal of the frontier whiskey.
Yeah.
Which is in and of itself just a load.
Right.
Like it just does. It's not.
They're trying to hurry up and get history.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which I guess in some cases you have to do to compete.
Yeah, especially it
is
in the bourbon boom.
Yeah, I guess it is interesting to what happens if you go for a new, not try to be this old tradition, bourbon distillery.
Yeah.
And then go to be new. One that's kind of been doing that is Rabbit Hole.
Yeah.
Rabbit Hole, like...
That was the other thing I was going to bring up, is Rabbit Hole announced recently, it may have been a few months ago, that they're putting out a gin.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
So
I know
is that out yet?
Just trying new
No,
things.
it's not out yet. I know about this because of a client. But
oh, really?
yeah. So
cool.
They're a client?
No, we're doing another Kentucky gin.
Oh, okay.
And so they were like, "Hey, competitors."
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it sort of Rabbit Hole's interesting because they kind of sort of came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were just like,
totally.
"Hey, we're here, and we have a really cool site, and we have cool branding, and we're this badass brand now. What's up?" Like, and it's an interesting approach. I've never tried anything Rabbit Hole.
I haven't either, actually.
Go ahead.
I'd like to actually interview them for the show.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
I've tried one.
Yeah.
And it was in sherry cask, finished in sherry cask, and it was really good. I really enjoyed the taste, and I wonder if the price point's a little too high, but I think I enjoyed it. So I like the sherry cask. I think better than the original one.
Yeah. Quick sidebar, real quick. Kurt and I are pouring in Tanner too, if he wants some.
Yeah.
Liquor Barn Buffalo Trace pick that I got, and I we'll talk about this in a future episode too, about waiting in line for bourbon. But I got this while I was supposed to be waiting for Old Forester birthday bourbon, which I have now up on the shelf up there.
Yeah, I saw you got that.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a future episode because it's really good, and I don't want to give it too much away because I want to do a whole review on it.
Sure.
Anyway, so Liquor Barn, from time to time does picks of different bourbons. This is their Buffalo Trace pick from the last quarter of the year. I really like this pick. Usually, Liquor Barn is pretty hit or miss with their picks, but I think this one was pretty on the nose.
Good bourbon joke.
It's been nothing but bourbon puns tonight. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Thoughts? You like?
Yeah.
Kind of? Yeah.
Good. I like it.
I'm a big fan of Buffalo Trace in general, just because my palate tends to lean towards more of the traditional flavors of bourbon. So when I first discovered Buffalo Trace, I was like, oh, this is one of the things where, like, if somebody says, what's bourbon supposed to taste like, I'm gonna go Buffalo Trace, Elijah Craig, blah blah blah. You're making a face there, Tanner.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a fan of this or not.
No?
It's so traditionally bourbon that it almost doesn't have a value to me.
Interesting.
So like and I don't want to like crap on it because
not at all.
It is a fine bourbon, but
it's just fine.
It is a fine bourbon.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is doing anything unique enough for me. I totally get if you want to try a bourbon, this is what bourbon is.
Yeah.
But I almost think that's like saying, if you want to try a cola, here's RC. Like, it's sort of that. Yes, okay, at its rudimentary point, yes,
It is
this
cola.
this is what cola is.
Yeah.
Just general brand.
Right,
kind of
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
And I like other Buffalo Trace stuff. I don't know. This is just interesting to me.
Well, we'll be reviewing another Buffalo Trace product at the end of the show tonight,
Yeah.
which Kurt keeps getting real excited about.
Yeah.
What do you think about this one, though?
I really like it. I get what you're saying. But as you were saying about that's kind of what your taste profile goes towards, is more the traditional.
Right.
I think it ultimately depends on what your palate's like.
Sure.
If you are wanting more of that traditional, or you want a little, spruce of something that'll change the notes or change the taste of it, then maybe this one's not for you. But for me, it's definitely a good middle of the road, well balanced.
Yeah, definitely. And keep in mind, too, that this is a pick. Like, this isn't necessarily like...
Indicative of the whole...
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And there, again, this is maybe someday we'll talk about whether or not store picks dilute
that's
the actual brand.
I like that idea as a conversation.
So we'll put that on the back burner.
Sure.
And everything. But I mean, I really like this. Again, it falls under the more traditional flavor bourbon. Buffalo Trace in general is pretty cheap. It's about $25 to $30. So I almost would recommend it to people who are like, well, I want to get somebody into bourbon, or I want to gift them a bottle.
Yeah. But I don't want it to just be the standard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to recommend Buffalo Trace.
You want a little bit of that cool factor with it's like a name that you kind of recognize, but it's not the standard makers or whatever.
Do you like the Buffalo Trace label?
I do, and I usually wouldn't.
Yeah.
But it is so... A lot of alcohol bottling now is about how do you stand out at least a little bit, and the tear is becoming more mainstream, weirdly enough, but Buffalo Trace really leans into that, to where it's like, we're going to do the whole label like this.
Right.
As opposed to, like, just, part of your little small label, like your tag label, whatever. I think it works.
Yeah.
About the label?
Yeah. Kurt's a little lost in the bourbon.
Sorry, I'm just enjoying the bourbon right now. My bad.
Kurt is floating in the bourbon. It's Kurtbin at this point.
Yeah.
We lost him. He's out the window.
Yeah.
There I
Come
go.
back.
Go.
It's a good thing we tied this rope around his leg.
Yeah.
Around his neck? What?
That got dark.
Wow, that took a turn.
Whoa.
All right.
Anyway.
Buffalo Trace label. I like it. I think that's all I'm going to give. I like it.
I like
Yeah.
it. Kurt, 2012.
2012?
Yeah.
That was 5 years ago.
I know. That's weird, huh?
Here's my thing about the Buffalo Trace label. And this, I don't know what this says about me as a graphic designer, but I look at it and I go, I don't know what else I'd do with it.
Okay. I get that.
I can think of a couple of things, but I think that it does what it does so well that it doesn't necessarily need innovation.
Right.
And we talked about this last time. 5 to 10 years from now, that's going to be a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
But I think that as it stands right now, it's
That will
fine.
probably be an underlying element within their brand throughout their entire...
Yeah, even if it's implied.
Yeah.
I think that is a little bit... it's like, it's not quite there, but it's on that fringe of iconic labeling.
The Hounds of Hell are in the background.
Yeah. Like, it is not iconic in and of itself, like the way Maker's Wax Seal or something like that is. But it is notable enough that you would be smart to reference it in future designs if you were to change it. I think it's fine the way it is.
Yeah. So, hopping back on topic.
Yes.
We were on Rabbit Hole.
Rabbit hole.
I don't really have a whole lot to say about Rabbit Hole other than they're a young company.
They're scrappy.
Yeah. They really are, though. Like in the nicest sense of the phrase, they're trying to make their way through, and I think they're really going to be pretty successful down the line. I just think that right now, it's just
they're so young.
Yeah, from what I understand, like the product is good. It's young. but that's
Yeah, I mean,
Part
I
of
don't
it-
think
that-
it's not perfected.
that's part of the craft distillery movement.
Yeah.
Too, is that people are pumping out younger products to make a name for themselves.
Right.
And I guess they're going into different fields, really. They're
That's
doing
why.
gin now.
That's
Sure.
probably why they're moving into gin, because gin is very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of quick turnaround on gin.
Same with vodka.
Yep.
You know.
In a clear spirit.
I always thought it was kind of interesting that Buffalo Trace went with a vodka product too. Like they have,
Wheatley.
Wheatley, named after their master distiller Harlan.
I didn't know that.
Apparently, it's really good.
Not a vodka guy.
Not a vodka guy.
No.
It's
It's fine to mix, but I'm not. I don't have a discerning taste.
like
of
I mean,
vodka.
I mean, we're doing a bourbon podcast. Naturally, I think that implies that I'm going to go for bourbon before I go for anything
Sure.
else.
Yeah.
I've had vodka before. I don't like it necessarily, but
Yeah.
I can tolerate it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Again, it is fine in mixed drinks, but I cannot pick up the difference between Grey Goose and Amsterdam like I can.
Sure.
Makers
Yeah.
and Bullet or something. Like
Yeah.
it is a lot more of a discerning taste if you have that for vodka, and I don't like vodka enough to figure it out. Basically, I would never drink vodka straight because it.
Oh,
is
You probably
definitely
don't. You
not.
probably don't care enough either.
Right,
to-
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like we're in.
And honestly, what are you gonna? What are you gonna be tasting on? Like, oh, I got Burnett's pineapple,
Yeah.
Burnett's blueberry, and Burnett's sweet tea. Like, come on.
And we didn't start in two. We're not in like the heart of Russia where vodka has this cool culture like bourbon does here.
Yeah,
Does-
You know
is
what I
no-
mean?
Does vodka have a culture in Russia like bourbon does in Kentucky?
Oh, I don't know if it's that passionate, but I would assume there's some
Sure.
sort of pride
You look
there.
at the stereotypes. It's just people drinking vodka like 24 hours a day.
Sure. I mean, that is a culture.
Grandma wakes up and drinks vodka. She pass out by 2 o'clock, but it's fine.
What is that accent?
I don't
You're
know.
slowly becoming Andrew Dice Clay. That's a joke for older listeners. I'm way too young to make that joke.
But wouldn't that be a cool conversation to have with Rabbit Hole?
Where they see themselves going in the next
Yeah, where
few
they
years?
see
Yeah.
this going, but also
Yeah.
like, do you want to stick with your bourbon being your flagship, or
Are you an alcohol company?
are you an alcohol company trying to expand?
Bourbon's such a weird place for a distillery like that to jump off from. Because it takes time
Right.
to make bourbon. You
Yeah.
know? I mean,
Yeah,
I can understand if, like, you started off trying to sell a vodka product or gin or whatever.
And then you build up enough capital to be able to do this
Yeah,
long
or
con.
like
Yeah.
you've put X number of barrels away that is bourbon being aged, and then 2 to 6 years down the line you bring it up and you're like, hey, we've been working on this,
Yeah.
now was the right time for us to pump it out to you guys, because we feel like we're we like where we are financially.
Right.
You clearly like what we're doing, so we wanted to give you something a little bit extra. So
Yeah.
I think that Rabbit Hole, in terms of their business model, has been a little bit backwards.
And just
I don't know.
Yeah, just as a disclaimer, I just want to like set the facts straight. We don't know anything about their financials.
Oh,
or
sure,
like
sure, sure,
stuff
sure,
like
sure,
that.
sure,
Not
you
at
know,
all.
I just
Totally
on a
outside looking in.
Yeah, total outsider perspective.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to make a big disclaimer at the beginning of every episode, like we're not being paid by any
We
distillery.
have no inside knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. We're just 3 dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speculating.
And that's part of our journey as well, as
Right.
of drinking bourbon, and learning about it itself, and learning about the distilleries. I mean, I would venture to say, even us, all 3 of us are very young in
Oh, for sure.
figuring out the underlying of the actual distilleries and
Yeah.
things like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're all under
So.
30.
Yeah.
Right.
I just thought that
How
was
we were-
like a
Yeah.
something we should probably address.
Yeah,
at least
sure.
a little bit.
Right.
So trying to get the train back on the tracks here.
Favorite distilleries.
Favorite distilleries, yeah. Or yeah, sure, favorite distilleries. I can't think of an alternative way of phrasing that right now.
Do you want to go?
I can go. I don't care.
No, go
It
ahead.
doesn't matter. Again, I've only really taken the tour of 3 different distilleries, but I've been to the campuses are more than that. I've been to Heaven Hill, Willett. I've been on Jim Beam's campus before too. But I guess like as far as the whole experience goes, like that, I think that's what we need to base our, judgment off of is like the overall experience. I would probably go with Makers. I think that they just not only is their campus just gorgeous, if you're ever in Laredo, Kentucky, go check it out because it's kind of a hole in the hill.
I was gonna say, if you're in Laredo, Kentucky, you're at Makers.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you live there.
Yeah, or if you're nearby, if you're in Bardstown. I mean, it's only a 15-20 minute drive from Bardstown to go to Makers.
Yeah, because when you're driving up, you're like, am I lost?
Yeah, you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere. And it's suddenly Makers.
Have I ever told you about the first time that we went to Makers?
Mm-mm.
So I had for listeners who don't know, I'm also a practicing musician. I had a gig in Elizabethtown on a Friday night, and we spent the night in Elizabethtown on Friday night, and we were kind of driving around the day after going, oh, we should do some Christmas shopping, because it was at the very beginning of December.
Okay, I was making sure it's the same story.
Yeah, it was at the very beginning of December, and my wife and I, Lucy, were like, oh, well, let's go to a couple of distilleries for my dad. My dad's a big Makers fan, as you know from episode 3 of the show.
Call back.
Yeah. And we were like, oh, it had gotten to be like 5 o'clock, and we were like, oh, it's going to be closed. But something was in the back of my head going, let's just go on. Like, let's just go and check it out and see if like the gift shop's still open or something. And we're driving up, and there's all these like candle lights and cars piling in and people waving cars in, and I'm going, what is happening? And Lucy's like, I don't know. And she looks it up and she's like, there's a candlelight tour tonight for free.
That's very serendipitous.
Isn't it really that?
Yeah.
So my first experience with Makers was just 100% by chance. And I mean, I think Makers is really the most fascinating and beautiful at this time of year when they're doing the candlelight tours. And if you're around, if you're around Laredo,
Yeah.
or in Kentucky in general, or want to come to Kentucky for the Makers candlelight tours, they're the first and second Saturday rather of December. This year. It's free. You have the chance to go and dip your own bottle. They have people set up to kind of do like tour-like things. Like they're not actually giving you a tour, but they tell you about like where the stills are and, the distillation process and what distiller's beer is and all that stuff.
And their new warehouse?
Their new warehouse, let me tell you, it's beautiful.
I haven't seen it.
My dad and I went in like January or February of this year, not knowing that warehouse had opened. This is, by the way, and probably for Tanner too.
Yeah.
The new warehouse is specifically for finishing Makers 46 and their private select barrels. So it's built into the side of a hill. Oh, cool. Which is basically like a man-made limestone cave. It's fantastic. They have a little tasting room, and is that where the actual restaurant is too?
I believe so.
Yeah. So you go in, like where the restaurant is, you actually go into a room, and you can look through a window, in further into the cave, and there's all the barrels sitting out that are getting finished for 46 and for private selects and all that good stuff. But anyway, yeah, like now that it's open, I'm sure you'll be able to go and check that out with the free tour.
Yeah.
But anyway, just kind of for me, like the overall experience of Makers has been a really positive one. And not that like Angel's Envy or Buffalo Trace have been negative in terms of like going and doing the tour and all that good stuff, but there's just something really unique and honestly kind of magical about Maker's Mark, because for 50 years they were doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And that was it. And they really kind of pride themselves on that. And it shows in the way that they set up their distillery tour. What are we even talking about? Distillery tour, and just their whole campus. I mean, it's just a very tactile, fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say Maker's Mark is my.
I really like Makers, and Makers was in the lead for a long time. So this was before. This was last year when we did Makers. That was the first one we did.
That was your first stop on the whole tour. Wow.
So we kind of went, what are the weird outliers on the map, and we'll work our way back in.
That makes sense.
That way, if we want to go on a day trip,
That's what we did too.
Yeah. So like, it just made more logistical sense to do that. And so we went to Makers first. Makers has, I think what you were queuing into there, it's like a Disney quality. Like if you've ever been to a Disney park, where it's like it's got sort of this. Everything's very well manicured. You have the freedom to go everywhere, but you know where you're supposed to go. Like it's, I think I view that as a positive. By the way, this is not me like.
Yeah.
It feels very manicured.
I'm a big fan of the Disney experience too.
Oh yeah, me too.
So like, I mean, I that might be why I like Makers so much.
I think Jim Beam, which is my favorite distillery that I've been to, has that where it's like. This is a wonderland of bourbon. Like this is this sort of
this is the
bigger than
chocolate
life
factory of bourbon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's this sort of bigger than life. The thing with Makers to me is that it's a little. And again, this was before the warehouse and before there was a restaurant there. I didn't know there was a restaurant now. So that may change my perspective if I were to go back. But the experience with Makers was a little bit like, all right, this is a really good baseline because it's the first one I did. I'm good. And
we're Kurt and I are pouring a little more. So
with
I don't have to drive.
I do.
I don't have to drive.
I mean, I guess you don't have to.
You don't have to.
Like, none of us have to.
I mean,
drink responsibly.
Yes. So anyway, Makers was a really nice baseline. I think Jim Beam has a little bit more fun with their tour. They do a lot of the cool like
Jim Beam does.
Yes.
Okay.
In their tour, they show off I thought was really awesome. You guys would really be into this too. I don't know about the general public, but there were sort of like histories of some of their advertising campaigns, and they also had.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they also had these. What do they call like the things that people used to put their bourbons in to store them?
Decanters?
Yes.
Okay.
They had a room full of like wild decanters. Like
I've got one up there actually.
Oh,
See
yeah.
that one on the far right? The duck one?
Yes.
Funny story about that decanter. Real quick before we
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was on it was either Let Go or whatever
I love this story already.
Yeah, and this guy had posted this bottle of Jim Beam from like 1982, and it was green.
Oh shit!
And I was like, "Oh, that's just how the bottle looks." So I go to this guy's house in Richmond, Kentucky, middle of nowhere, in a trailer park.
Nice. Beautiful.
And he's like, "Yeah, I'll give it to you for $10." And I was like, "All right."
Yeah.
Not knowing what was about to happen or anything, I get home, and I'm like, I'm a little worried. I'm gonna pour a glass.
Oh, geez.
It was like, like water that had been colored with green food coloring.
Like absinthe color?
Nice.
No. Oh, no.
Oh, like
it was
much
like
greener.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Like halfway between grass green and forest green.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like,
What?
You know how when you were a kid, or, I mean, I didn't do this, but I know people that have done it. Not when you're a kid, but when you're, like, older in college.
Okay.
And you put, sorry, I had to get my ages right.
No, you're good.
I was like, oh, a 10-year-old drinking.
We're designers, not mathematicians.
Yeah, that's not good. That's like the third reference that we've had that. That they put like highlighters or like glow sticks in the water and
Oh, right,
and
right.
make it colored water.
Yeah, I've seen people do that.
It's a
yeah.
very college thing to do.
Okay. Let me back up a little bit on that, because what I thought you were talking about was doing something to a liquid that you were preparing to drink.
Oh,
No.
So I went into that thinking, oh, they're putting highlighters in a
That
thing
is
of
very
water.
poisonous. I would like to go on record as saying, don't drink that highlighter water. That is a point we should make.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah. Anyway, so.
But that's what I'm imagining is like fluorescent, just
Neon green.
neon green.
Oh, it wasn't neon green. It was, I'm trying to look around the man cave.
Green Bay Packer green?
Like algae
Dark,
water?
a little bit more blue in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, I gotcha.
You know how the green and the yellow and the Green Bay Packers really complements each other?
Sure.
Like, it would be like if you just skewed it a little bit too far.
Right. I gotcha. Like if you took Q shift and just went,
Just
a little bit more in the blue.
A little too much. Yeah.
a little more cyan.
Anyway, so that's the story of my Jim Beam decanter. So anyway, back to the Jim Beam decanters at the Jim Beam Distillery.
So they have an entire, like, basically mini museum of decanters, and some of them are really cool, like from elections past, with like one was like Nixon's head.
Wow.
They're almost more like cookie jars in some regards. Like they're very sculptural and reminiscent of whatever's happening at the time. One was like Elvis. One is, they're really cool. And I valued that kind of stuff at Jim Beam. They also had a killer little barbecue joint on campus.
Yeah.
And that was just like really cool to me.
I remember when you did that.
Yeah, so there was sort of a... Jim Beam doesn't take itself too seriously, which I liked. Because it was like, our tasting room is kind of... We have a bunch of these little dispensers that will dispense your ticket's worth.
What?
Yeah, and you get like 3 tickets or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you get to choose, and they're kind of like an adult water fountain in a way. You press a button, it comes out, and you drink it. Like,
yeah.
So there's a little bit more like playfulness with it, and I really enjoyed that. My least favorite is, I don't know, I really was a big fan. I was a bigger fan of Bullet then than I am now when I went to Bullet, and I was very excited for that. But it is almost barely big enough to make the trail.
Didn't they? But they've now. I think since then they've actually opened their own distillery.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think at the because you went on the trail like
summer of last year.
middle to end of last year.
Yes.
And they just opened their own distillery at the beginning of this year.
Gotcha.
I'm almost.
Is it the same
certain.
place? Like, are they same?
No, I think it's
right outside of Louisville.
I think
that's where they were.
I don't want to say too much one way or another.
Sure.
But that sounds right.
Okay, gotcha.
If only there were a way to look it up.
Yeah, there's this thing called
The
a
Googs?
thesaurus.
Give it a Googs.
I think it's a thesaurus that people use. An encyclopedia. That's it.
What
That's
a wealth of knowledge.
That's the website people like.
A thesaurus.
Encyclopedias.
Encyclopedia.gov.
Org. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're going organization.
Yeah. And the logo is like a bike, but it's a brain. It's encyclopedia. All right.
Oh, okay.
I'm done now.
I got you. Anyway,
I've had very little sleep.
so Tanner 3 hours of sleep Cheney.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
That's what they called me in high school.
Has said, wow, that's depressing almost.
Yeah.
Jim Beam's your favorite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kurt?
Mine, and I halfway think that it's because the stories that have come out of it, and that's why I really like them. But, so, my favorite is Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey because...
Well, first and foremost, that campus is gorgeous.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And so pretty.
Yeah, one thing I love so much about it is you drive in, and you drive over that huge bridge, and it's just in the middle of the mountains. Not mountains, but like hills. It's just beautiful. You see the actual building, the distillery of it, and it's just amazing. You see it from like, you're like 200, 300 feet beneath it pretty much, and you just see the distillery. That's coming into it is just beautiful.
Lawrenceburg, Kentucky is where Wild Turkey is, but it's what I imagine like the hills of Ireland look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it just kind of has that magic to it. I
In
guess.
awe,
I've said
yeah.
magic a lot more than I
Yeah.
intended to.
Bourbon
talking
is
about
magical.
It's something though. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Going in, it's
It's a great view.
Yeah.
And the tour is really good as well. I mean, they all have that. This is how you make bourbon.
yeah.
So that aspect, you're kind of like, okay, that's cool.
Now, when did you go to Wild Turkey most recently, though? And I'm prompting you to tell the story because
Yeah,
this is the coolest story out of the three of us. I
yeah.
think.
So we went. It was Father's Day, and so my mom and dad came down. We went for Father's Day, and they had never been for. My parents really aren't into bourbon that much, but that was one of their first ones, and so we got on the tour. We went and saw everything, saw the warehouses, saw where everything was done, the special like tasting rooms, all of those sorts of things. And then when we got back, Jimmy Russell was actually there with his wife.
Jimmy Russell is the oldest master distiller in bourbon right now.
Yes.
I mean, I think maybe in history. And I mean that is one of those things where like you don't wake up going, "Oh, I'm going to go see Jimmy Russell."
Exactly.
today."
We had no clue. No
Yeah.
clue. But as we were talking to Jimmy and his wife, that it was literally, they come every single Sunday after church. And he is there every single Sunday. And then he also is, I mean, he's there throughout, all week too.
Sure.
It's just really, that's a really cool experience to
Yeah, that's
have.
really cool.
And we talked about, he used to play basketball and just like just stuff. We started shooting the shit pretty much.
And looking at Jimmy Russell now, you would never know that he was any sort of athletic.
No way.
Because he's this little old hunched over man. He's adorable. You're
He's great.
"Aw."
But not adorable because we we got to talking about prohibition and and things like that, and he was like, "Oh, I've been doing this for a long time. When prohibition happened, I was still doing it," and like, just was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I thought it was going to get real political there for a second. But
Yeah, me too. I was worried.
No. It was. Just
I didn't know if Jimmy Russell was like, "Now let me tell you about when I didn't vote for FDR."
Yeah, he was just like, me and my family have been doing this a long time,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it was just a really cool experience.
Well,
he signed a bottle for us.
Nice.
So that one is definitely my favorite. I have another story
Oh
too, not at Wild Turkey. I guess I've just been blessed with like really good experience at distilleries. At Buffalo Trace, Freddie is a tour guide.
Oh
there.
yeah, he's like the tour guide
He is
at
the
Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went into it not expecting anything. We just were gonna go on the tour.
People
And-
plan like their trips to Buffalo Trace around whether or not Freddie is actually
Gotcha. Okay, so
gonna be
he's
there.
the guy.
He's the
guy.
man.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And the reason he's the man is he's so enthusiastic, loves it, but it's more that his entire family had been there even when Buffalo Trace started and helped with the bourbon, helped make it. And so it's been passed on from generation to generation to generation. And when Freddie's dad passed away, they dedicated an actual wall of Buffalo Trace for Freddie's dad.
That's awesome.
And
That's
so,
so cool.
he's like, "That's my family," and you talk to him, and he's just the most fun-loving guy. It's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those two, mostly because of the stories, but that's what I was meaning when the unique,
Yeah.
the one
Yeah,
unique
the
thing.
touchdown.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, like last year, and this pales in comparison to your story, but like when we went to Makers last year for the first of the two candlelight tours, Bill Samuels Jr. was there, just kind of at the end of the bottling line.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get your bottle that you just dipped in the red wax, and you got him to sign it, and he would take a picture with you, but he was 100% silent the entire time. And he had people that would go, "Okay, Bill, they want to take a picture with you," like it was Mickey Mouse.
Like he had handlers, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I get that excitement.
Yeah.
But I mean that is really, really cool.
Yeah, those two stories are pretty cool.
Yeah, so Wild Turkey,
Wild Turkey
For you,
definitely
then.
my favorite.
Yeah. cool.
Buffalo Trace was awesome too.
So I would I would recommend picking and choosing
Yes.
where you go on the Bourbon Trail.
Yes.
Because there are some really cool gems hidden around there. I definitely recommend going to Heaven Hill
Go to actual Heaven Hill.
in Bardstown.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't go to the Evan Williams Bourbon Experience thing in
No,
Louisville. That is awful.
it's
Because it is not an actual distillery. It's literally there as like a on the streets of Louisville. Hop in if you're staying there overnight and want to know how bourbon works. There
Jim
it
Beam
is.
has a place like that too.
Yes.
It's sort of like at Gatlinburg they have the moonshine.
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
and it's strictly there to just
Turn a profit.
Yeah.
if you want to come in and have a few drinks and we'll talk about it a little bit.
But it's like
Yeah.
that one is bizarre too because it's like they project a bunch of different like short skits they've filmed about like how the company. I'm not kidding you.
At the Evan Williams Experience.
Yes. The coolest thing is they've got like a bottle statue inside the building, which is kind of cool.
Does Willy Wonka drop down from the ceiling?
No,
too?
okay, so it's
And-
not live action. It's projected on the wall.
I understand.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, is it that bizarre?
It's
where
like-
Gene Wilder is.
Almost. It's like a
Spy
bunch of
Kids stuff.
it's like a bunch of these actors go around and are pretending to be the founders of the company. I don't remember names, but
So like we were talking about
That is
earlier,
very
with like
bizarre.
in 50, 100 years, they're gonna do that with Bill Samuels.
right. But
Make it work.
at points, I kid you not, they break the fourth wall. And are
That's
like,
frustrating.
way.
see now this
I
is
don't
how
like
we
that.
started. It was bizarre, dude. It was at least the coolest dumb thing. Because it was like, at least I'm here and got entertained in some way. I was the only one laughing. I was dying. I was like, what? I was like, what? What is going
Broke
on?
the fourth wall.
It's so weird. There's like guys packing barrels in the background. And it's like, with my friends here, we started this. And it's like, what is this?
It's almost like animatronics.
Yeah,
like,
almost, right. Yeah, it's almost Hall of Presidents.
All presidents, yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say.
It's weird.
That's very strange. So anyway, moral of the
So
story.
don't go.
Go to the
Go
the
to
actual
Heaven-
Heaven
yeah.
Hill
Yeah, go to
Distillery
real
gift
Heaven
shop,
Hill, yeah.
all that stuff. I would also say check out Maker's Mark, check out Buffalo Trace. Definitely go to Wild Turkey just for the sheer like beauty of that campus.
On a
But
Sunday morning.
I mean, if that's what's going to get you in the good graces with with old Jimmy.
Yeah.
If you go to Jim Beam, get the brisket tacos at the barbecue place.
Oh,
And use their own, like, Jim Beam barbecue sauce. It's good stuff.
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
You know they have like a barbecue cook-off every year at Jim Beam.
Nice.
Yeah.
They sell a bunch of different sauces in their shop.
I think it was happening the same weekend as the Bardstown Bourbon Festival, or Bourbon and Beyond. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah.
But one way or another, I wasn't able to go, and I was like, oh, what would be better than going and like drinking bourbon and eating barbecue? I mean, that
Jim
just
Beam
sounds
also,
fantastic.
if you want to go just for general bourbon merchandise, like if you want a Bourbon Trail shirt, that's not the one you get when you complete the tour.
Right.
Or if you want just like, they have the best gift shop. Theirs is Two
Oh, really?
Stories. Yeah, it's like
Oh, wow.
legit. They have like grillware and cookware and like a bunch of random stuff, but they also have like a really good selection of Bourbon Trail
I will
shirts.
say Woodford's gift shop was really good too.
I've still not been to Woodford. I meant to go actually this past weekend, and we kind of ran out of time. We just went to Buffalo Trace.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another thing we kind of forgot to touch on, and we'll wrap up this conversation here very shortly, was distillery or gift shop exclusive releases. Which I don't know how much like you guys have really delved into that, but like a couple of the ones that jump to mind are the Elijah Craig Barrel Select at Heaven Hill, which is lovingly known as the Grenade.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
I mean
They talk about
I've had it.
we had it at Tom's house.
Yep.
Our first big bourbon night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a
Very
story.
had a fun time.
That's a story in and of itself. Anyway, go to Heaven Hill, and even if you're just looking for something that you can't regularly find in stores, go get the Grenade. Maker's Mark offers, which is what is not technically known as Maker's 46 cask strength.
Yes.
But it's the Bill Samuels Jr. Private Select, which is Maker's 46 at barrel strength.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually not had it. I've been meaning to have it. I love Maker's 46. It's a phenomenal finished bourbon.
They also do Maker's White there. The only
Yes,
place
they
you can
do.
get that, which is basically moonshine. But
Yeah, it is. I've talked about. Well, I have a bottle at my dad's. I've talked about aging it in a little mini barrel.
yeah,
To see how it turns out, and I'm sure that it's going to wind up being just like Makers. But anyway, that's a whole that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, there's a cool conversation about the White Dog.
Yeah,
Kind of demonstration too, but that's for another.
You know what would be interesting? Maybe in a few episodes we could do like a like a flight fight with white dogs.
Oh, interesting.
I'd be down. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean it's something different. I don't know if anybody's
strong.
It would be. We'll have to pour conservative amounts.
Sure.
But boy, that would be.
Might as well.
It'd be something in and of itself.
it'd be cool.
Yeah, sure. Again, we'll put it on the pile.
Yep.
Anyway, so if you find out that there are distilleries that offer bourbons that you can't necessarily go and get in big stores, go check them out too, and go grab them. So I think that about wraps it up for that conversation. We are going to move into a very exciting portion. I don't think that Curtis can wait much longer.
I know. Let's talk another hour about distilleries. Just so Curtis has to squirm.
So this episode is very special. Again, last home base episode we reviewed the William LaRue Weller. I have to really pause and say that syllable by syllable. Buffalo Trace Antique Collection 2017 release. So we're actually going to do another Buffalo Trace product in Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year, which I'm excited for because oddly enough, I've had everything else in the Van Winkle line other than the 10-year. You think I would have worked my way from the bottom up, but I'm looking forward to checking this out. Van Winkle 10 is obviously a 10-year-old bourbon, or as it says on the label, 10 summers old. Whatever.
Wah, wah, wah.
It's a wheated bourbon, so instead of there being rye in the mash bill, there is wheat. And it's 107 proof, much like, what was it? Weller Antique 107. Sorry, I blanked for a second. What did I almost say? I almost said Elijah Craig. I was like, that's not right. That's not right at all. Real quick before we jump into this, I paid too much for this bourbon. But it's sitting here, and I think we're all just a little bit looking forward to
Look
it.
at how antsy Curtis is.
I've never and Curtis is.
You're so ready.
This is really funny.
Yeah,
You're
but
so
I'm
ready.
This is
honestly,
really
like,
funny though because
I'm not as excited as what you guys are making me out to be.
I don't know. You seem like a kid about to open a Christmas present.
like we.
I do love Christmas.
So I last year in
Halloween all the way.
the seal is off of it now. There's no going back. Last year in Pappy Holidays through Kroger, I won the Van Winkle 12 Lot B.
Happy Holidays.
It is called
Sorry.
Pappy Holidays. Isn't that
Okay,
fantastic?
Carry on.
And I was like, hey, and this is well before the idea of the podcast ever came about. I was like, hey, Curtis and Tanner, come over. I got something.
Yeah.
I got something special. And I think at that point, that was easily the best bourbon we've ever had.
Oh, easily. I was
Easily.
mad.
I
I
exactly.
was mad at how good it was because
But,
well, there goes bourbon.
But like,
I enjoyed it while it lasted.
I feel that way now about the William LaRue Weller.
Really?
Yes.
I don't.
Interesting.
Really?
No, yeah, Pappy's still
Pappy
far
is
away.
still on my top. Yeah.
Wow.
Because it made me mad. I was literally just like,
We were both furious in the weirdest way.
now we're at the top. Now
Yep.
what?
I don't
Now
know
what?
if like
Even though we weren't. I mean, we were at near the top.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if like the glass has been shattered for me on Pappy, or like I've broken through the ceiling
initial-
or whatever.
Mhm.
But like it just
Do you have any more of it? Just curious.
any more of the 12?
Yeah.
I do actually.
Ah,
Yeah, I have a little bit. I have so the bottle is up there on top of the bookshelf,
Oh, yeah.
but I have relocated the juice, excuse me, to a smaller bottle to avoid oxidation.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I wasn't gonna like drink a whole lot of it too quickly, but I was also low enough on it to where I didn't want it to be exposed to the elements, for lack of a better phrase, at the small amount that I had left. So I put it in a smaller bottle so that I, was able to enjoy it for longer, the way that it was actually supposed to be enjoyed. And it's a long way of saying yes, I do still have some.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is an official uncorking of the Rip Van Winkle 10-year. So
Hey, that was a good one.
thank goodness.
That was a great
I
sound.
thought it was going to be a thud.
Just like a...
And I'm just gonna
Okay, sure.
pass it around to.
We're using our fancy glasses now.
We are, yeah. We are all three reviewing this out of Glencairn glasses.
Yeah.
Curtis says, "You can have a little bit more. It's all right. I want to have enough so that we can actually yeah, it's good. So we can actually taste it a couple
Yeah.
of times and no." Curtis is already nosing it, and he doesn't seem too upset. I'll say that much.
Definitely not.
Thank you. I'll get back to the glass here in a second.
Lots of fruit.
It's got a great color to it.
It does. These glasses always make me nervous because they swish around a lot.
Yeah,
It's never going to get up here, but it's just like...
So again, for sake of consistency, we are reviewing in Glencairn glasses. Because they're supposed to provide a better experience in terms of taste and nose and everything, but also because it just looks real nice.
Yeah. Little treat for us.
So the last episode that we did together, we invented our review system of nose, palate, price. I'm going to expand it
Okay.
to nose, palate, finish, and price.
Ooh.
Because I think that the finish is really important, too, when you're actually talking about a bourbon.
And I think that we, for the most part,
We
talked
touched
about
on
it.
it, but we didn't make it a
we
definitive
did-
score.
Yeah, but
Give it
I
an
think
official
it needs its own category. And again, that would help us to round out the scores a little bit better.
So are each of them still out of 5?
Yes.
So now it's out of 20.
Yep.
Yes.
As opposed to out of 15.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean that would be
That makes sense.
That would provide us with a better overall
Metric.
score. Yeah, exactly. So that we can actually say, oh, it's a B plus out of. Or,
Right.
Oh, B plus out of 100.
Yeah.
An
It
80.
easily
Remember, I
translate
don't,
to a
remember, I don't like grades.
Yeah, I know. So just keep that in mind as we're checking this out. But I'm gonna nose it for the first time. I'm getting mainly just alcohol,
Me too.
Really?
mainly just ethanol.
And sugar.
Yeah,
I'm getting a lot of just straight
Like
up
burnt-
saccharin.
yeah.
Really? I'm getting florals. Like
I
florals.
see a little bit of the floral too. Yeah. No, I don't necessarily.
Oh, I did on that one. I see what you're saying now with the floral.
yeah.
yeah.
I don't necessarily
I
mind the
actually-
nose.
Honeysuckle. That is what I'm getting.
There we go.
Honeysuckle?
Yeah,
That's a mix of
Honeysuckle
your
floor. Yeah, yeah.
floral and
Mhm.
sugar.
yeah. I don't necessarily mind the nose. I just don't think that it's all that impressive right now.
I'm impressed. I like it.
Yeah. So I'd say let's go ahead and take a little dive. P.S. The legs are real nice on it.
The what now?
The legs.
You want to explain that for me?
I don't know the best way to describe it, but when you wine has legs. So like when you turn the glass up, it's the amount of the liquid that is left running down the side of the glass.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Thank
Yeah, it's a technical term for what didn't make it back down, I guess. So,
you. Okay.
guys,
Cheers.
cheers.
Whoa.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, I have a lot of opinions about this.
Whoa.
That is one of the more unique bourbons I've ever had.
That is really interesting. And it really changes at the end of the...
Yeah, it's
Are
got
you
like
getting that?
three different flavors almost.
So it hits like front, middle, and back very distinctively.
Yes.
To me.
Yes.
I'm gonna take another sip though because I
Yeah, me
need
too.
to make sure that.
Clear with water first.
Wow. I'm a pretty big fan of this.
I enjoy this. It's so
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
To me, it goes. It's still it matches the nose at first taste for me. So like, still sort of that saccharine honeysuckle type.
Definitely.
Floral. Yeah.
Sorry, we're being a little bit. We're trying to process this as we.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
You're,
it's
you're in
sometimes you
media
for-
res here.
Sometimes we forget that we're on an audio medium.
Sure. So for me, it goes the honeysuckle, and then almost more of I don't really know how to describe it. I guess more of like a bite. Like I'm almost thinking citrus, and then it becomes peppery.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really interesting
Progression.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that hits it on the head.
Yeah.
Really, I got the same thing. You smell it and you get the floral notes, that honeysuckle, and then you just get it's still a little sweet. It's in that transition of going from okay, here we are, floral, and then I'm gonna hit you with a little pepper at the end and the finish it
For me,
with a little heat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, the front end is really just kind of a basic honey flavor, coupled with a lot of caramel. The middle part of it is heat, and then the back end is a lot of the oak from the barrel, which is interesting to me because like the older the Van Winkle line gets, until you hit like the 20 or 23, I don't taste as much of the oak. So it's kind of bizarre that the youngest of the expressions, I get more oak than some of the other ones. But I'm gonna suggest we add just a couple drops of water as well.
Okay.
Especially since it's 107 proof. Because I think that it might offer up something a little bit different. So let's proceed, shall we? I'm just
doing the old flick.
I'm just flicking and dropping. Is that vulgar?
No, that's what they call me in high school.
Okay, so I've added about 5 drops of water. I don't know
I'm trying
where
to
y'all
just
are.
Get it wrong.
I added 2. I'll go 3.
Okay. See, now the nose is a little bit.
One succinct drop.
I still get some of the alcohol on it, but some of the more underlying notes. Some of the more underlying notes have really come out. What is that? Like some of the earthiness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting. I think it might just be how I smell and how that is, but it's really about the same for me. I didn't get a lot of the ethanol that you guys were describing in the first one.
I want to see what this is like with the.
I get more maple now than I did before. Oh, it says the Glencairn at the bottom of the glass.
It does. Whoa.
Oh, that's different.
It is. I think it smooths out the middle
It does.
part of the palate quite a bit.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the finish.
I would definitely prefer this with a couple of drops of water.
I don't know. I kind of like the in-your-face brashness of the
Sure.
without water.
Yeah. I mean,
It's more interesting that way, but
I
this
think
as far as just drinking it.
and I think that's where I'm coming from more is that just kind of, if I were to try to drink it more regularly, I would want a couple drops of water in it. But yeah, as far as like a unique bourbon goes, it's really good without water.
Yeah.
It's also really good with water.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And that's really been both uncorkings that we have done.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
really
we tried it with water last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each time it gave it a different taste.
No, I think that we needed to try it with. Well, yeah, I like it better with water. I think that the William LaRue Weller needed a little bit of water
Yes.
to kind of
100%.
open it up a little bit, just because it was such a high proof bourbon. And this one didn't necessarily need it, but it benefited from having some water on there. So I'd drink it both ways. I just prefer it with a little bit of water.
Yeah, I prefer it without water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer without.
So let's go around and do our nose palate price finish. Or nose palate finish price.
Nose, palate, finish, price.
Yeah. Tanner, you want to start, or do you want Kurt?
What's the price?
What's the actual?
MSRP.
MSRP is about $60 to $70.
Okay.
I paid more than $60 to $70.
Paid a little more. All right, so nose, palate, finish, price. Nose. The nose is probably the weak link in the group for me.
I agree.
The nose didn't do anything super special. It's a nice one, but it's kind of hidden behind some straight up ethanol. Because I totally got that too. Like felt my nose hairs burning. Like it was very strong in the ethanol department. So I would probably give that like a 3 of 5. It wasn't an unpleasant nose. It was just kind of you had to work your way to get there. Palate is probably the strong suit. I think that.
Wait, did you say 3.25 or 3 out of 5?
3 out of 5. Sorry.
Okay, I thought you said 3 to 5, and I was like, that's literally the higher end of the spectrum there.
I want to give it a 1 to 5. No, 3 out of 5. Sorry. Palate, I think was really strong. I prefer it without water, so I'm gonna grade it nicely because of that. I feel like the less additives you have to add, the better. So I'm gonna give it a 5 on palate. Finish is a little strong. I appreciate its brashness, but it kind of takes away from me for the overall drinkability. If that's what you're buying it for. If you're buying it for a fun, this sort of sitting around, try this bourbon, then I think it's really powerful.
Definitely.
But if you want to, drink it on a day after work, it might be a little rough after the third or fourth sip. So I would say probably a 3 of 5 there, and then price.
MSRP $60 to $70.
Yeah, that's really not. I mean, for a specialist kind of bourbon like this, it doesn't bother me that much. This is. I will say this with how much was the Weller we tried last week?
It was 110.
Okay, so
yeah.
To me, this is a much better value than the Weller was. I think that
Interesting.
I am more willing to pay 60 to 70 for a bourbon like this than I am 110 for a bourbon like that. If we're talking about just pure value, I am more likely to go to a store and buy this at $60, although I know it's not going to be there at $60.
Sure.
So I would give that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I would give that a 4 out of 5. So I think my total is 3, 3, 6, 11, 16 out of 20. No, 15 out of 20. I'm sorry.
I can't do the math right now.
That would be a 75 out of 100.
So would you give this like?
See, here's the thing though. You can't curb a 20-point scale.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would have to give it a 5, 5, 4, and a 5 for it to be
Sure.
an 18.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. No, sorry, 19.
So
So I think we just keep it numbers.
Yeah, I think 15
Okay.
out of 20 is fine.
okay, that's fine.
Because it scales differently on each scale.
Yeah.
It is I enjoy this, and I don't remember what I gave the Weller, and I might be becoming more critical as this goes along. Like,
Well, I don't think
You
we
give
can.
the Weller a B-.
I don't know if we can even compare it at this point because we added a whole nother
that's
category.
true. That is very true.
To
Yeah, I think I enjoy this bourbon more than I did the Weller. As far as
Interesting.
it is this price point, this is a fun sit around the table. Everybody should try this bourbon. I wouldn't sip it as often as I would.
If
like
you
the
pull
Weller.
this out, though, more people are going to recognize it and go, "Holy crap!" than you are with the Weller.
Right, exactly.
You know, so I
It's a
get
fun
that.
party bourbon.
I get that. Yeah, for sure. Kurt, you want to
Yeah.
go next?
Nose. I felt it was really good. I didn't catch that ethanol, like I was saying. I didn't get that ethanol smell, but I will agree that it was just. It was just that floral, fruity notes, which was really good. There was nothing too unique about it, but I really enjoyed it and thought it was really good. So I would give that probably around. I give that a 4 out of 5, and then palate. Palate was when it got real interesting, and you got that citrus, you got that initial part, and then it went to that oak. I thought the palate was really good, so I'll give that a 5. And then the finish, it did have that brashness. It hit you real hard, and you're like, "Hey, oh, okay,
I'm awake now.
yeah." Like the very beginning, you're not getting that, and then at the finish, you got that. Which it was only until we put the water in that you don't really get that that hit, which I missed. So I'll give the finish a 3.75.
Oh, you're getting into the decimal at this
We'll
point?
round it up to a 4.
So-
All
it's a
right, we'll
4,
round it up to
yeah.
a 4. And then
It's a
price
100-point
point,
scale.
I have to give the price point a 5.
I think that's fair. So
The price point is on point for this bourbon.
So you had 5, 4.
4 and 4.
You had 5. What'd you give the nose?
You gave that
A 3, I think. Or did you not?
3.5, I think.
Oh.
Maybe it was a 4. I should remember what I said.
Yeah. So, do you want to say 4, 4, 4, and 5?
4, 4, yeah.
So, you got a 17.
Yeah.
You gave it a 17.
Okay, so Tanner's at a 15 out of 20. Curtis is at 17 out of 20.
Which would be 85 out of 100.
So the nose on this one didn't really impress me that much. I would concur with Tanner. I'd say it would be about a 3 out of 5. Just because the heat was a little bit overpowering for me, the ethanol. And I mean I still got some of the more underlying notes, but it just wasn't enough to really kind of push the nose over the edge for me. Palate. I think solely on complexity, I would give it a 5, but in terms of preference, I would probably give it a 4.
That's fair.
So I think I would. I think I might give it a solid 4.
Yeah, right for you.
Yeah. Finish. I think the finish is probably my favorite part of this whole bourbon. Just because I'm still sitting here going, oh, I'm tasting more of that honey. I'm also tasting some and this is really specific, but dried fruit. I mean, it just has kind of that, not bitter, but just really specific taste that dried fruit has. It tries to hold on to that sweetness, but it's gotten past the point of being something truly sweet.
Sure.
I think I'd give the finish a 5 on this. And price point, look, if you can buy it at $60 to $70, I think that's the best value. I did not pay $60 to $70 for it. Mm-hmm. Well, whatever. I think I might give it a 4.
0 to 16.
Yeah, that sounds about fair for me. I think overall I'm pretty pleased with it. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going. All right.
Yeah.
I do look forward to trying it again, though.
I'm not gonna go proselytize it, but I will say that it was a good bourbon.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, I will say it's very good.
I actually had the 12-year last night, for the first time in a while, and I was not as wowed by it.
Interesting.
As I was this. I don't know what that says about my
that's interesting.
My palate or anything, but I quite like the 10. I wish that it were more readily available. I would definitely consider it more of an everyday drinker. And I also like wheated bourbons a lot too, like your Wellers and all that good stuff. So yeah, just to recap real quick, Tanner was at a 15 out of 20.
Yes.
Curtis was at an 18 and
17.
17. Sorry. Oh, really?
Yeah. 15,
Oh, do we figure
15, 16,
yeah.
17.
Yeah. Okay. And I was at a 16 out of 20.
So a 70, 80, a 75, 80, and 85 respectively, if you want to
So I think
round it up.
You know, honestly, I think that's pretty indicative of the whole Pappy line as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, like they're good bourbons. I think that there's better stuff out there. I think that there's too much hype. And again, like we'll review stuff from the Pappy line in the future. I know we will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll still continue to talk about it.
Sure.
And I guess this is old Rip Van Winkle and not Pappy.
Okay, the Van Winkle line. We'll try
Yeah.
to lump it in a little bit more generally. So yeah, I'd go buy a bottle if you can. Don't pay
buy
bar
a shot. Yeah.
Don't pay bar prices for it
No
because you're
way.
paying like $25 to $50
No.
for a shot of it.
No,
at
you're
a
paying
bar.
more than that. Some of them are up to.
Where
like,
are you going to eat?
Huh? Some of them are like at 100.
Goodness gracious,
That's too much.
Oh,
That's-
it's way too expensive.
that's unreasonable.
It's that at well, I won't
Don't name drop.
names, but
That's okay. So before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I've been kind of kicking this idea around about introducing a new segment to the show called Recommendations. And guys, it doesn't have to be specific to bourbon.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be specific to anything. If you've got something that you've really enjoyed
Huh.
recently, what would you recommend?
and it could be any,
It can be anything.
but
I mean,
alcohol-wise.
it
like drinks wise.
sure it could be drinks. It could be Call of Duty.
Mm.
It could be, you know.
Now we're speaking my language.
Yeah, it could be sour cream.
The bourbon baby boy is about to be the recommendation ruler.
Where's the WWE reference?
Yeah.
So, what have you enjoyed recently that you would recommend to other people?
I'm going to take it the music route this time. Gold Links at What Cost is an album. Gold Link is the artist. At What Cost is the name of the
okay. Sorry, I was like,
album.
is that the whole name of the
No.
album?
It is. You might be familiar with Gold Link from the song "Crew." It's been sort of popular in recent time. I was a fan of Gold Link's first album and kind of fell off the map with him, and have just been listening to this album a lot lately. It's sort of a cool rap R&B fusion that's not mumble rap. It came out last year, I think.
Good.
But I've, like, as much as I love Damn, the Kendrick Lamar album, I would say I've probably listened to this album front to back more than I've listened to Damn this
Interesting.
year. It is
Interesting.
really, really solid front to back, and I just love it.
Cool. Kurt?
All right, mine's gonna be more mainstream, and I'm sure everyone's heard. Like you said, Call of Duty. So to give a little backstory on it, I used to play Call of Duty when I was in high school all the time, and played multiplayer. And then after Black Ops, fell off the face of the earth because all of those games were just not very good.
Let's go to the future.
Yeah, let's go to the future
again.
And let's not do
Let's go
They
as
didn't-
far back in the past as we
Yeah, and
possibly
they messed up the multiplayer. They just didn't do it well. And now, recently, that last game that they've done, they put out World War II. It's been phenomenal. It's
Really?
it's been phenomenal.
everyone I know who's played it's loved it.
They brought back like my childhood, and
That's so.
that's how they marketed it.
That's so
towards it,
interesting
too,
because I've
but-
heard people say that it is the worst game in
No
the Call
way.
of Duty
No, it's
line.
like a rebirth of the franchise.
it's a
Really?
rebirth of
Love
the
it, yeah.
franchise. Yeah,
That's really
it's
interesting.
awesome.
No, I'm not really a video gamer, so
I'm not either.
You know.
But that
Hi.
game I am.
It's just your boy,
Yeah, Tanner's a
resident gamer.
nerd. Yeah,
Dorm streamer.
yeah. Dorm
Yeah.
streams.
I have a gaming podcast called Dormcast.
No, dude, we'll plug. You can plug that.
Yeah,
later.
no, I mean it's But yeah, so as far as games go, also just going to be a quick shout out to Super Mario Odyssey. That game is phenomenal.
I want to play it so badly.
You should. It's really good.
I would love to. So,
So yeah, really good.
So you're recommending
World War
the new
II.
Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think I'm going to recommend a couple of podcasts.
Oh, cool. Oh, God. This is going to be such a fun segment.
Yeah, totally. I am a big fan of The Weekly Planet, which is a nerd podcast based out of Melbourne, Australia. It used to be the official podcast of comicbookmovie.com, but they kind of have strayed away from that recently. But it's two dudes who are really just good buds. If you're into the whole superhero comic book culture, give that a listen. It's a lot of fun. It's really just two dudes shooting the breeze with each other.
Three dudes shooting the
Three
breeze.
dudes, yeah. And I like to think that we're the Bourbon podcast version of the. Just kidding. I'm actually going to recommend another whiskey podcast. The Podcask.
Such a great name.
Isn't it fantastic?
Such a great name.
It doesn't get... I wish I had thought of it first.
I know, it's so good.
That's Will and the Greaves out of Nashville. I'm actually going to be interviewing them tomorrow night.
Hey, nice.
that's awesome.
For the show.
Awesome.
I don't know where that episode is going to fall in terms of release.
Sure.
Because everything's been kind of skewed.
Yeah.
Like, this is episode 4, and I don't know what episode 5 is going to be necessarily just yet.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, go check out. And you know what's funny is people have probably found this podcast as a result of having heard stuff like the Podcast first, because they're like, oh, I want to hear Bourbon podcast, so they search, Bourbon podcast or whatever, and we pop up. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna cap my recommendations off this week at just those two. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for listening to the longest episode of the show. So
Yeah, we went
on.
long.
Yeah, but I mean, I enjoyed kind of just going on
Yeah.
about stuff. So
it was a good conversation.
if you like this format, if you have enjoyed hanging out with us for this for us
Fireside chat of bourbon.
yeah, drop us a line. You can find us, this is my bourbon shop at gmail.com, at my bourbon shop on Instagram and Twitter. We're also, this is my bourbon shop on Facebook. You can also use the hashtag, this is my bourbon podcast.
You got all those characters now, so it's going to be a drop in the bucket.
I know, dude. People are going to be asking questions like crazy. And speaking of which, if you have a question for us, feel free to shoot that. And
please.
I mean, we'll be happy to read some fan mail. As I
Fellow people mail.
I use extreme.
Also, it's not
quotation
mail
marks.
anymore.
Yeah, it's just
Listener questions, I guess, might be a little less
sure. We'll do a question.
self-aggrandizing. Sure.
Letters. I'm not going to steal the letter segment from Weekly Planet. But anyway, Tanner.
Messages in a bottle.
Yeah. Messages.
Carrier pigeons?
Yeah. I was trying to do a bourbon thing with bottle. Anyway.
Couldn't think of it.
Tanner, if people want to find you on social media, where can they do that?
I'm at Tanner B. Cheney everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, everything.
And you just said, too, that you have a gaming podcast as well, right?
Yes, so I do some streams on Twitch at Dorm Streams, which was named when I was in college. Not a lot of forethought, but it stuck, so there we go. And we have a gaming podcast called The Dormcast that we put up on YouTube every other week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Kurt?
You can find me at Twitter at Kurt_Con15 and Instagram KurtCon.
And if you want to find me on my personal accounts, don't.
Damn, all right.
No, I'm just kidding. It's PRitter1492 pretty much across the board. Thank you all so much for listening. If you could give us a rate and review on iTunes or Google Play or whatever you're listening to us on. SoundCloud's a little bit limited, I understand.
Yeah, it's a
I
mess.
can only put up like 2 to 3 episodes at a time because of the amount of like storage that they allow.
Yep.
It's really geared towards musicians, isn't it? More than
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but anyway. So the best way to reach us again is this is my bourbon shop at gmail.com or with the hashtag on Instagram or Twitter, I guess. This is my bourbon shop. or you can add us, My Bourbon Shop. We will be taking off next week for Thanksgiving, but after that, we're going to be jumping back on the train with an end of the year spectacular. It's not really spectacular. We're just,
It just happens to fall at the end of the year.
Wouldn't it be great if somebody's like, I'm going to do a best of episode for you?
Yeah, let's figure out our best segments from the 5 episodes we have. Real short show.
Yeah.
Remember that one time when we talked about Disney World?
Oh man, that was like a full 30 minutes on episode 4. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate you enjoying bourbon with us. And until next time, my name is Perry.
I'm Curtis.
Yo soy Tanner.
3 hours of sleep.
Yup.
Woo! And this is My Bourbon Podcast.